Hulu pulled a journalism report hours after it went live. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Aptrepreneur. Welcome to my media channel, and I probably shouldn't be making a video today. I got boosted yesterday, if you know what I mean, and the side effects have not been great. I have a lot more aches in my body than I did last time. And granted, I had some side effects for the first two, but this time, man, there's really some aches, and there's a little bit of a headache too. But I read this story while I was just, kind of, lying in bed with the news on in the background, and it was just something that we've talked about too much on this channel. It's something that I'm too concerned about for me to ignore it. So if I'm a little less energetic than usual, I'm very sorry, but know that I am sitting here doing this in pain because I am very concerned, and my chinchilla mini is on the wheel right now if you hear anything. So anyway, if you are aware, I'm pretty sure you're aware, there was a concert called Astroworld. This was a concert, an outdoor venue concert, and it was huge. A lot of people went up, and shortly after the concert had started, that crowd pushing started to become like a big problem. People were literally being crushed to death. Several people died. A lot of people went to the hospital. And when you have a big event like this, there is normally a news outlet or two that will do a very special hour-long expose of the situation. Now, usually this is like in the form of like 60 Minutes, 2020, but sometimes a local news station will also do a report on these events, and that local report will actually go national because it's considered well done, or they're the first to do it, or whatever. This is just how the world of journalism works sometimes. Well, a local ABC network decided to make a hour-long documentary-ish sort of thing. It's like an investigative journalism report. It went up on Hulu, and then very shortly after it went up on Hulu, it was taken down by Hulu. And the special was called Astroworld Concert from Hell. And I'm going to read exactly what is being said about this takedown, but if you are familiar with previous videos, you might know where I stand on this and why I am doing this video through all the aches and pains right now. So anyway, tragedy struck last month during Travis Scott's performance at his annual Astroworld Festival. A massive crowd surge of 50,000 people left hundreds injured and 10 people dead, including a 9-year-old boy. Seeing as families and friends of victims are still coping with insurmountable loss, many thought Hulu's decision to host a TV special titled Astroworld Concert from Hell on their site was highly insensitive. The 50-minute Astroworld Concert from Hell program recapped the events that went down at the Houston Festival. This sounds like something that would be made. The description of the documentary special says it gives a minute-by-minute look at what happened that night. Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival was supposed to be the concert of a lifetime, but it turned into a tragic nightmare. A minute-by-minute look at what happened in the crowd, the young victims who were killed, and what happens next. People on social media caught eventually, I think they put an extra caught in there, eventually caught wind of the documentary special and condemned Hulu, with one user saying it was in, quote, poor taste. Eventually, Hulu opted to remove it from their website completely. A spokesperson for Hulu told Variety, quote, "This was an investigative local news special from ABC 13 KTRK TV in Houston that originally aired on November 20th. This was not a Hulu documentary and has since been removed to avoid confusion." Now, I have real issues with this. I have very real issues of this, especially coming from my journalism background. Here's the thing. I have been writing for various websites through the years, never with any notoriety, but I have been doing it. And I remember watching specials like this. I remember the 2020 Monica Lewinsky scandal special. I remember how 1 week after 9/11, CBS was airing a special about, the attacks and showed the only footage of the first plane hitting the World Trade Center. I remember all these things. This is not something new. And of course, the logical solution, if you are offended by these things, or if it was just too disturbing, you didn't want to see it, gosh, my chinchilla is running a lot today, was if this subject bothered you, don't watch it. You could change the channel. There's plenty of other things on TV to watch. Actually, when it comes to streaming, that's probably more true than ever before. And were there people upset that these specials were made? Of course. Were there people who felt that that was capitalizing on horrible events? Of course. But the thing is, it is journalism. It is the news. I mean, what is the proper response to a tragedy? Do you simply not talk about it until there's an appropriate level of time between the event and the victims? I mean, what does that even look like? Victims have very different views on how long is too long. There are people who are at Astroworld who are speaking to the media. They want to talk to anyone who will listen to them because they don't want this to happen again. While there are other people who were victims of the event who basically are traumatized. They don't want to talk about this. They are offended that they are getting called. And I mean, the solution's always simple. Well, look, those people who want to talk to the moon about this, talk to them and hear what they have to say. The people who don't want to talk, well, you leave them be in peace, and they will probably not watch this special. But this is just another situation of Hulu, and really it's not Hulu, it's Disney, because Disney owns Hulu now, being afraid of Twitter. Like, this special went up, it was probably factual, it was probably interesting, but people on Twitter who probably did not even watch the special decided that it was insensitive, it was bad timing, and it needed to be removed. And, that is just not how this works. This should never be how it works. For those of you who are wondering, why I'm so offended by it, it's because it just starts to affect everything. Like, all these streaming services, needling to Twitter, the Twitter mob. There's a reason that's a thing, where people on Twitter decide they get offended by something and they don't want people to see it. So what happens when things like this happen? There were people who actually took screenshots of the Golden Girls, where they had, that mud stuff on their face, like it's literally mud. They were at like a beauty salon or something like that. It started trending just a little bit on Twitter, and Hulu removed this episode. And as you can see, this is an article from HuffPost. Basically, this was such a wild overreaction because anyone who watched the episode knew that it was not what Twitter was making it out to be. It was literally them at a beauty salon with mud on their face because I guess mud irons out wrinkles. I don't know why they do it, to be honest. I'm a guy. I don't do that thing. But people all thought that it was stupid, which, by the way, guess what? It's back on Hulu. Episode 23, Season 3. There it is. It's back on Hulu. So, thankfully, cooler heads eventually prevailed. But that also kind of highlights my other problem. Like, is this going to be like a permanent thing? Like, is the Astroworld documentary just going to be removed and then after some time has died down, then they'll put it back up? I mean, this is like a bizarre world that we're living in. Now, Hulu, of course, stated that they didn't want people to think it was a Hulu production, but Hulu houses so many different programs. That's kind of why people like Hulu. That's why Hulu is like one of the top 3 streaming sites, because you can get pretty much anything on Hulu from all the different companies. And people, at least smart people, should be able to realize that everything Hulu puts on their platform doesn't all come from them. Some of it is original, and you can usually tell because it will be marked with a Hulu original logo on it. But this was not. It was just a local special, and now it's been pulled. And now apparently we can't talk about this. And I just take offense to that. Now, obviously, you do want to be a little careful what you put on. You don't want to be putting on super conspiratorial specials and things like that. You don't want things that are going to put out information that is factually not true. But I think the worst offense of this special, from what I hear, is that basically the report questioned the concert culture and how people could get so into the music that they were literally crushing people to the point where they couldn't breathe. And people did say that, you know, they didn't really talk to security, and security pointed out that they were understaffed, they were underpaid, they were not prepared for this. And yeah, maybe that's an angle that they could have gone, but the special is not factually inaccurate. And this is where, like, some things can get a little bit more tricky. You might remember I did a video about the Woody Allen miniseries on HBO Max that was basically a mouthpiece for Ronan Farrow and Dylan Farrow, basically to, you know, re-shout their accusations against Woody Allen and things he allegedly did in the past. Now, I made a whole video, so I'm not going to go over that. You can watch it up there if you want. But that was definitely like a more gray line. I think that special, or that little miniseries, was lying by omission. They only talked to the people that would back up their side of the events. They did not go to the court documents. They did not go to the police that you know, looked over the investigation. They did not talk to the judges who ruled on the case. They did not talk to psychiatrists who evaluated Dylan Farrow. They didn't talk to anyone. They didn't even talk to Dylan's brothers and sisters who had a different recollection of events from that whole situation. And so I don't know if what they were saying themselves was lying, but they were certainly lying by omission. They weren't being fair and even-handed. Would I pull it from HBO Max? Not necessarily. I mean, unless it can actually be proven that what they are saying is 100% factually and accurate, although there's enough court documentation to, you know, make a very strong case that Dylan is not remembering things correctly at the very least. It's still journalism. Like, this is still what the news is about. You talk about things that are uncomfortable. And so when I read this thing about the Astroworld thing, aside from my annoyance because I was going to watch it, it was in my queue, and it actually would have been a great day to watch it because I'm kind of, for the most part, I'm in bed today. But then when I saw that it was like removed because Twitter got upset, it's like this is just getting crazy. This is getting crazy. And the sad thing about this is I don't even know what the solution is, because it's not like this is something where you could make an argument for physical media. Like, when do we buy news reports on DVD? Like, very, very rarely. I know, like, that CBS 9/11 special, I do have that on DVD, but that's because it was a freebie that came with, like, a book about the event. Otherwise, who would buy it? So I don't know what the solution to this one is. I would hope that Hulu and Netflix and Paramount, anyone who has news programming, they need to watch out and they need to be very careful about this, because you know what? The news is important. I know a lot of people don't trust the news these days, and they don't trust them for good reason, but you need to let your journalists report. You need to let them talk about uncomfortable situations. I mean, some people might say, like, well, Astroworld, talking about it already, it's insensitive. People are still recovering. Right, but then, on the other hand, the other side of that argument is this is the time when Astroworld is coming way under fire. They're being seriously pressured to do things better next time. Why would you want to let up when their feet is being held to the fire, and now is like the time to strike when the iron's hot? Like, do you want people to forget about this event and then the people who let this happen go scot-free? I don't know. I mean, I've never liked when streaming services kneel to Twitter and remove stuff, and I don't like it that they're doing it now. So anyway, that's where we are going to leave this one. And now I pass the question off to you. What do you think? Do you think Hulu made the right decision to remove this special from their platform? Do you think their excuse that they didn't want people to confuse it for what they made is a valid one? I would really like to know what you think about all of this. So you know the drill. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one. And I'm going back to bed now.